Hi, this is Bob Papa, voice of the New York Football Giants, and this is the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to our latest preseason interview series. And joining me for this episode is none other than the New York Giants play-by-play announcer and widely known as the voice of the Giants. I'm proud to say friend of the podcast as well. It's Mr. Bob Papa, ladies and gentlemen. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Hope you're doing well, and great to be on the show with you.
I'm doing fantastically well, thank you very much, and I'm very, very pleased to be chatting with you this afternoon after a long, busy day at work. So it's a good way to end the day. This is a new series we're running, so we're going to get straight stuck into the questions. I've got 5 questions for you, and then we'll have a quick fire round, a little bit of fun at the end to round it out. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds like a plan.
Perfect. Happy days. So first up is sort of more about your background, really. So how did you get into sports journalism in itself?
Oh, it's something I wanted to do since I was a little kid. I'm old enough, unfortunately, to remember pre-cable days when you actually had to listen to sporting events on the radio, whether it was the Knicks, the Rangers, the Yankees, the Giants. A lot of the home games weren't on TV, so you had to listen on the radio. And I fell in love with radio, and I was a finance and marketing major at Fordham University in the Bronx. My parents said if you wanted to major in communications, you got to pay for it yourself. So I said, has finance and marketing sound? They said, good backup plan. But I kind of learned everything I needed to learn at Fordham. They have a very famous radio station that's produced the likes of Vin Scully and Charles Osgood and Michael Kay with the Yankees and Mike Breen with the Knicks and Chris Carino with the Nets and a zillion other guys. So kind of just honed my craft and got fired up and got into it and stumbled upon WNEWAM, which was the old flagship station of the Giants, and got working there. And next thing you know, I'm tied in with Big Blue forever.
Yeah, and I mean, esteemed company there with some of those names you reeled off. I mean, Michael Kay with the Yankees. I know I'm a big Yankees fan myself, so I know Michael Kay. He's a great commentator, and I listen to him sort of most days when I'm watching the game. So it's you're in good company with these guys.
Yeah.
And obviously going back to wanting to start off with listening to the radio. Obviously, there's something quite sweet about listening to a football game on the radio, I find, and it's almost like you have to imagine what's going on the field, and so you really have to sort of explain and sort of describe each play as it comes, and I think that's a beautiful thing about radio commentary is the listener doesn't have that visual concept, so you really have to explain it, and you do it fantastically well. So hats off to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I do a lot of TV, and TV is really the star of the show on TV is the analyst. Your job as the play-by-play guy is to set it up and then let them take over with their expertise, whether I'm doing golf with Hall of Famer Lanny Watkins or Giant preseason games, or when I did Thursday Night Football with Chris Collinsworth and then Matt Millen, boxing with Teddy Atlas. You got to kind of stay out of the way. Radio, you're the camera. The play-by-play guy is the camera. So you control most of the action because your word description paints that word picture, as my mentor, the late Marty Glickman, taught me. So it's a lot of fun. It's a really cool thing to do.
I mean, how cool is it having Carl as your analyst on the side when you're calling Giants games?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, his football IQ is off the charts, and obviously he's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. So, he can watch a play, and even with Howard Cross down on the sideline, and we had Phil Simms in the TV booth with us this year, and they just see things that we don't see. They see it at the snap of the ball. They just understand the game on a certain level that their eyes naturally take them to certain places. So if you're smart and you keep your ears open, you can learn a lot listening to those guys.
It's very true. It's very true. Yeah, the little intricacies of the game that they pick up on like straight away that you have to watch back sort of 3 or 4 times. It's crazy what they pick up on and these little details. So yeah, so it's always good to have someone like that by your side. Moving on then with the expansion of the game in Europe, obviously in the UK and Ireland as we are. The Giants have been selected as the Global Markets Program team in Germany this year, and obviously the Giants are playing in Carolina and Munich in November. Does it surprise you that the sport that we both love and we watch, you're at the games week in week out, and we watch the games week in week out. Has it surprised you that the sport has grown and become so popular outside of the US?
No, it really hasn't. It's interesting that you bring that up because when the Giants played Miami in 2007, their starting right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor, was in England at the time as a kid, and he wears 72 because of OC. And you can see how, that really kind of laid a foundation. I started doing World League of American Football back in the early 90s. I was the radio voice of the New Jersey Gladiators. Cool. And then at NFL Network, I started doing games. And I did the last ever World Bowl in Frankfurt. And
wow.
I was really impressed with the fandom throughout Europe. And I know it's big in Germany because of, the remaining years of that World League. All the teams were in Germany. Barcelona had gone by the wayside at that point, and the London Monarchs and everything else. But I think the NFL has grown the game, and they can't have enough games in Europe at this point. And I think that's great.
No, it's very true. I mean, we get 3 games a year in the UK, and so we're always wanting more. Obviously being in Munich in November, we're heading over to Germany in November to watch the game because it's only an hour and a half flight away. So for us, it's as close as we're going to get to Giants football for a little while. So it's great that for us that it's in Europe, but it's nice to hear that it's well received across that side of the pond as well. Because you do hear some people say, "Oh, it's our sport. Why they're taking it away from us?" Well, it's a global sport. It just happens to be that it's very popular in the US. So it's one of those things. But yeah, we're looking forward to the Giants having a permanent link, at least for the next 5 years in Europe anyway. So that's a good thing moving forward.
I just hope I'm around long enough for when the Giants play a game in Italy. That's what I want to see.
That'd be cool. The Olympic Stadium in Rome, that'd be really cool. Last season, then talking a little bit about last season, it was challenging to say the least for the Giants. Obviously, injuries caused a huge sort of issue throughout the season. But going into this season, what do you feel like the mood's like in the building? Is the team overall? From what you said,
everybody is always positive. Excuse me, the phone is ringing.
No worries.
Listen, this time of year, everybody's positive, right? Everybody's fired up. All 32 teams feel like they got a great chance to win the division. And they love their young players and they love the arc of the team and everything else. And then, reality sets in. You realize that you're not as good as some of the other teams that you're competing against. You realize that some of these question marks you had on your roster truly were legitimate question marks. And I think the Giants are no different. They're not a perfect football team by any stretch. They certainly have improved their offensive line. What we've seen in the preseason,
for sure.
There's a lot of energy. And I feel comfortable in making the case that the strength of this team this year might be their offense. Despite the fact that Saquon Barkley's not here, Singletary is a tried and true proven player. They've added some young players behind him. You throw in Malik Neighbors and an improved offensive line, and this team could be pretty good offensively. My biggest concern about the Giants really is defensively, because outside of Dexter Lawrence and Raheem Nunez-Roches, you have really unproven depth on the D-line. You got Burns and Thibodeau. I like Ojulari, who has shown flashes, but he can never stay healthy. But there's not a lot of depth behind them. Same thing with Okereke and McFadden. Where's the real depth behind those players? And then you get to the secondary, and
we really struggle.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of question marks. They're counting on two rookies in Tyler Nubin at safety and Drew Phillips to play the nickel corner. They're counting on them. Cordell Flott has been a very inconsistent player because he hasn't stayed on the field a lot. Nick McLeod's a nice player to have as part of your rotation. And, Xavier McKinney was a really good football player. Now, I understand why the Giants didn't want to give him $17 million a year. But you're asking a lot from Pinnock, Dane Belton, and a rookie in Tyler Nubin to kind of fill in the blanks. And the depth is very thin. So, to me, the biggest concern for the Giants is that secondary, whether it's corner or safety.
And you obviously like Deontay Banks there as CB1 as well. He's only in his second year. So it's a lot of pressure to put on such young shoulders and to be that lockdown corner that the Giants need. So the secondary definitely is thin in terms of depth. I think I agree. And sort of to the side of that, what do you think like the identity of the team is this year? Do you think they have an identity yet, or do you think that's still being worked on?
I think it's still being worked on, but I think one of the things that Dable and his staff have preached, and I think it was during the draft process and with the kind of free agents that they brought in, they're looking to become a little bit tougher as a team. I feel like last year they got pushed around a little bit, and maybe that's because the offensive line was so bad, but they've brought in some tough guys. Runyon's never missed a game due to injury. He's participated in every game. Van Roten, Stinney, these are guys with a lot of pelts on the wall with playing experience. Illuminor did a really nice job with the Raiders the last couple of years. He's another tough guy. So I think they're trying to be a tougher football team. And we've kind of seen that a little bit in the preseason. We saw that going against the Lions, who, let's face it, on paper, if you go position group by position group, the Lions are a deeper team than the Giants. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
One of the strongest in the NFC.
Yeah, and Houston, who they played last week, they have a very talented roster as well. So I think the Giants have certainly shown an ability to mix it up and fight a little bit more. And I think that's been a marching order from Coach Dable from the start of this camp.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw during camp a couple of weeks ago the sort of the aggression coming out against the Lions in that joint practice. And I think that for us as fans, that was quite a positive sign to see that sort of that fight and that passion and that aggression coming out a little bit and actually having a bit more of a, just a bit of an oomph about them, not being pushed over. So compared to the joint practice we had them last year. So it does look like a different team. But yeah, I think it definitely is a work in progress. But I definitely like the additional bit of toughness that the players are bringing out for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely showing a little fight.
Yeah, man. From all the players, we've mentioned the new players, for instance, Runyon, Van Roten, Illuminor, Stinney. Out of everyone that the Giants have added to the team, to the roster this year, through draft, free agency, who do you think could make the biggest impact to this team in 2024?
Well, Brian Burns has to. Kayvon Thibodeau had a really good year last year, right? He had 11 and a half sacks. But I don't think Kayvon Thibodeau's game has developed yet into a completely dominant player. And I think you bring Brian Burns in, who's got 46 sacks already in his career through his first 5 years, and is an OCU Manura kind of speed rush guy. And now in big spots, last year in some big spots, teams were double teaming Thibodeau. And they were like, all right, let Jihad Ward or Boogie Basham, or when Ojulari was healthy, let them beat us. But we're not going to let Thibodeau wreck the game. If those two guys stay healthy, now you have two legit guys on each side, which is going to help the secondary, right? Because if you can get pressure, that's going to help the secondary. So Burns is one. And then, I think Illuminor is number two as far as the new imports are concerned. because the right tackle has been an issue. And Evan Neal's coming off this injury. He started practicing last week. He's looked pretty good in his limited time on the practice field, but he wasn't going to be ready to start the season. Illuminor gave you a full season's worth of action last year. One of his best games was against the Giants, as a matter of fact, last year. So I think those are two very key components, along with Runyon and Stinney and Van Roten with toughness. But I think if you ask me to single out one on each side of the ball, Illuminor to lock down the right side and Burns to bring balance to Thibodeau are the two most important acquisitions, not counting the draft with Neighbors.
Nice, yeah. And I think Illuminor's gone a little bit sort of under the radar in terms of how valuable he could be to this team. So, he had a great game against Houston the other night on Saturday in a preseason game. I didn't think he allowed a single pressure in that game. So, it'll be great to see him sort of really hit the ground running in the start of the regular season. Last couple of questions for you then. So, obviously, this season is the 100th year of the Giants. The Giants 100 program that the team have put on has been great so far, but. How cool was it from a personal perspective for you to be hosting the Night of Legends that the Giants had hosted at Madison Square Garden?
I've worked 10 Olympics for NBC. I've been at starting with Barcelona in 92, I've been to some unbelievable events that I've worked. I did the Holyfield Douglas Heavyweight Championship pay-per-view called Giant Super Bowls. I've worked the Masters. Excuse me. I've worked a lot of things, and I would put that night up there with some of the other things that I've done in my career, like highlight things. To have that collection of talent on the stage that night and the history, and to have Coach Parcells and Coach Coughlin up there was really fun. It went 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it was spectacular. And the theater at Madison Square Garden has a lot of events. They have concerts. They have all kinds of things. They have events there almost every night. And as we were leaving that night, a lot of the ushers who have worked all the events, and they're all old timers, they've been there forever, boxing matches, you name it. They said, of all the things we've ever had since I've been working here in the theater, this might have been the most impressive night of them all. And that was really cool. Now, the Giants have some really cool things lined up for the weekend when they kick off the season with the Fan Fest on Friday night, in which the top 100, both living and deceased, will be there. We're going to have panel discussions around the stadium throughout the course of the night, and then we're going to have, obviously, on Sunday, all living or a deceased family member of all 100 will be on site and announced at halftime. So, getting a chance to dive into the history has been really cool. One of my buddies that plays on the PGA Tour Champions, a major champion winner, won the PGA Championship on the regular tour, Jeff Sluman. He's a big Bears fan. And he said to me, man, he goes, our organization couldn't pull this off. Because most of our history outside of the 85 Bears, he goes, most of our history is from so far back. Everybody's gone for the most part. The Giants really have had, they won championships in the 20s and the 30s and in championship games in the 40s and won a championship in the 50s and in those championship games in the late 50s and into the 60s. Obviously, we know about the 18-year drought, but then it started with a playoff win in 81, playoff win in 84, 85, 86, 88, 89, 90, another Super Bowl, and then a playoff appearance in 97, a Super Bowl appearance in 2000, and then obviously Super Bowls 42 and 46. And even in this dead spell, which has been a horrible 10 years, you do have a playoff appearance in 2016, and you did have a playoff appearance 2 years ago with a road playoff win. So it enabled us to build this and cover all these generations and have living, breathing superstars from a lot of different eras still available to partake in it. So it's been pretty neat from a Giants perspective to be involved in this.
Yeah, and I think it's it's been well received. I think it has been by us over here in the UK, but I think it's been well received by the Giants fan base as a whole. And like I said, the history of the team is the main thing, and we get to celebrate the history of the team, and look back at all these memories that happened long before I was born, long before you were born as well. And it's all about educating the newer fans about the history of the team, and it's one of the main reasons I started following the Giants nearly 20 years ago is because of the history of the team. So it's been a really cool series so far. I've loved it. Last one then for you. So we were lucky enough to be invited by yourself and Carl to experience the buzz of being in the commentary booth last year. As you enter into your 30th year covering the Giants, calling the Giants games, do you still feel that buzz calling each game that you felt on day one?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I equate an NFL Sunday morning, for us when I get to the stadium at 9 a.m. for a 1 o'clock kickoff. But a Sunday in the NFL to me, and it hasn't changed. My first year as part of the pre and the post game was 88, full-time play-by-play. This will be my 30th year. To me, I always describe it as an NFL Sunday morning is like Christmas morning. Yeah. There's the excitement, there's the anticipation, and then when 1 o'clock Eastern hits, boom, all the presents gets opened up. You start ripping off the wrapping paper of each game. When the games are in London, we get to start our Christmas celebration a little earlier, 9:30 New York time. But I feel like 1 o'clock, you're ripping open the gifts as fast as you can on Christmas morning, and you're waiting to see what's in each gift wrap box. And, you're checking scores from around the league. So-and-so just scored in Jacksonville. So-and-so just scored in Philadelphia. And then it continues all day because then you have the late window games. And then you have the Sunday night games when you're kind of like ramping it down. But, yeah, I still get that same excitement as if I was a little kid on Christmas morning, seeing the tree and can't wait to unwrap the gifts and see what they are.
I love that analogy. It is like Christmas morning every Sunday. It's just a shame we only get 18 of them every year.
Yeah.
We could have them every week.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. We're going to finish off with a few quick fire questions. So just like 1 or 2 word answers, and then we'll wrap this up. So obviously you mentioned some sports teams there. Obviously the Giants being the big one we're talking about here. But who's your favorite other sports team apart from the Giants?
I have 2, the Yankees and Rangers.
Let's go. I like that. For your favorite stadium to call games from, apart from MetLife?
MetLife has a great broadcast booth. One of the best in the league. Philly's a really good location. I'm looking at it from like my job. Yeah. From my job standpoint, Philly's a really good setup. So I like working there. Plus, we could drive to the games, so that makes it easy.
Yeah, it's not too far. Easy trip. Love that. Worst stadium to call games from then?
Let's see. Kansas City's good. Green Bay is really neat. It's cool because it's Lambeau Field.
Yeah.
Those are the top couple that come to mind.
Nice. What is your favorite game that you've attended, either as a commentator or a fan, or just been in the stadium for?
Well, obviously the 2 Giants Super Bowl wins. Super Bowl 42 is epic. It's legendary. I was doing the NFL international telecast for the NFL. I did that for about 10 years. Obviously, the first overtime Super Bowl when Brady led the comeback, that was pretty cool. Yeah. Peyton Manning's last game, winning the Super Bowl. Hey, Super Bowl 43, the Steelers driving down the field and beating Arizona was pretty awesome, too. The Ravens, Niners, Super Bowl 43, I think it was. Super Bowl 47. Super Bowl 47.
47 is the year after the Giants one, yeah.
Yeah.
In New Orleans.
Yeah. It was pretty good.
Nice. Nice, cool. And what's been your personal highlight working for and covering the Giants?
To just be like completely immersed. I got to run. Coach Dable is waiting for me. Sorry to cut it off. I got to go.
No worries. All good, man. Thanks, Bob.
Bye.
Have a good one. Well, that was Bob Papa. A huge thanks to Bob for joining us. I'm sure, him running off to speak to Coach Dable was a very, very good reason to leave us. But yeah, for those that don't, who want to follow Bob that don't already, we'll leave a link to his X page and his Bleav in Giants podcast, which he co-hosts with Carl Banks in the description. Thanks to Bob for joining me. Even though you had to leave to go and speak to Coach, we'll let you off this time. But yeah, thanks for taking the time out of your no doubt extremely busy schedule. We hope you've enjoyed the episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Our social links are in the description below. We're signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.